So this is going to be a short one. I just have a quick update for you guys regarding my workflows. I found a few things that just kind of tidy things up a little bit, and also there's one kind of little bug that I was able to fix with one of these nodes as well. So I'll go ahead and show you what I mean here. As you can see, I have our layout now grouped, and this isn't necessary, but it just helps make things a little neater, a little more organized. So we have this first grouped over here for the prompt, and then we have the middle group here for the sampler, and then this group over to the right for the output. This is a thumbnail that I was working on for my cousin. He has a gaming channel, which I'm gonna do a video on these thumbnails in just a little bit, because I actually came up with some pretty cool results. Like, for example, I think that looks pretty badass. Anyways, so I'll give him a shout out in that video, and you guys can check him out if you like watching gaming stuff. Anyways, so over in the prompt group, we have, of course, Sarge with our output node. There's our text and code node. We have our clip loader, and then we have this clip attention multiply, which I do have a video coming for that very shortly. For now, if you want to just kind of copy these values, they work really well. So nothing new there really, other than the clip attention multiply, which again, I will make a video on that shortly. The thing that I found that is really helpful is here in the sampler group. So we have our checkpoint loader for NF4. I have the node to load the regular Flux dev model as well, but I just leave it bypassed if I'm using NF4, and then if I want to switch to the dev model, then I'll just unbypass that and bypass this and just connect that straight to there. So I have both of those there for me to use whenever I want to switch between them. But mostly I've been using NF4 lately. It works really well and allows me to actually run other programs at the same time. So I've been pretty much just sticking to NF4. So anyways, nothing new there. We have our model loading nodes there, but this is the real helper right here, this Flux sampler parameters. And the standard Flux workflow that you get from Comfy's site, they are using the sampler custom advanced, and on that node you don't have the ability to set these parameters on the sampler node. So if you remember in our Flux video, we had all these other nodes out here for the sampler and the scheduler and the number of steps and all that stuff, and then those were being fed into this sampler node. And so it just created this whole other mess of nodes off to the left here that, you know, if you can set them on the sampler, then why have all those extra nodes? And all you have to feed into it is your, you know, your text prompt, your model, and your empty latent image. Sorry, checking a notification. And to add this to your workflow, well, you can of course just download my workflow if you'd like over on Patreon, obviously. And I'm actually going to start putting them on GitHub too, so they'll be in both places. But obviously you just double click and look for the Flux sampler parameters, and that's the node right there. And of course all I've done is just change it to a blue color just because it adds a little bit of visual separation there. And then the other node that I found that's quite useful are these little int nodes right here. So if you just search for int, it's going to be this first int constant kj nodes, this right here. And when you add it to your workflow, it actually comes in this blue color, which isn't one of the colors you can choose from in Comfy. So I'm not sure how they got this blue color, but if you went to, like, say underneath the colors here, that color actually doesn't exist in Comfy. So anyways, I thought that was neat. I just left them the color that they are, which is kind of cool. And the thing I really like about these nodes is it kind of fixes this bug here that we had with our height value before. If you remember on the other Flux node that we were working with, we had these nodes here for height and width, and these are primitive nodes. And the problem with them is that, let's say if you wanted to do a 1920 by 1080 aspect ratio, 1080, for some weird reason, these nodes do not like certain values. So 1080 is one of them. It's always going to change it to 1088. So you're always going to end up with this 1920 by 1088, which isn't a huge deal. You can crop off the extra pixels, but that's just more work to do. And, you know, if you have a node available to you that will just let you use 1080, then obviously that is much better. So it fixes that bug. If we come back over here to this workflow, you can see I have 1920 by 1080. So there's no additional cropping that I need to do once I, you know, export my images. It's just already right in the perfect aspect ratio. And 1080 is not the only value. There are other values that primitive node doesn't like. I can't think of them right off the top of my head, but there are other values that I've entered into it, and it either increased or decreased them by some, a few pixels just because it didn't like that value for whatever reason. So I found these two nodes, these int constant nodes that actually let you enter the values that you want to enter, which is really nice. And other than that, that is all that's changed over here in the output group. We just have the preview chooser, which is something you've already seen in previous videos. And then of course, this is just a preview image node. You could change this to a save image node if you like, but I tend to use the preview image node because I don't want them being saved on every run. So that's it. We just have kind of this nice, neat, color separated layout with all of our prompt related nodes there, our sampler related nodes there, and then our output related nodes there. And of course, we have this new sampler here, which allows us to not have all of these additional, extra nodes in here. We don't need that anymore because it's just on the sampler itself, which cleans things up and makes it look a lot nicer. The speed is the same. The output images are the same. So there's no difference in the sampler other than the fact that you can set these parameters on the sampler itself rather than having all of these other nodes dangling off to the side here. So it just cleans things up and makes it look a lot nicer. And then of course our two little int constant nodes right here, which the only reason we switched to those is just because it allows us to enter the values we want rather than ending up with some weird offset of our values. And yeah, everything else is the same, just some nice visual separation there with the colors. And as always, this workflow along with all of my others are over on Patreon. So if you want to get this workflow, all you got to do is go to my Patreon page and scroll down until you see right here. You just click on this image here, and then you'll have to right click and open image in a new tab. And then you can just pull that off to the side and drag that right into your Comfy, and you will have the updated workflow with all of the settings dialed in. And of course, again, you can see on my clip attention multiply there, and here's my prompt here that I used for this image. So all of these settings are already set up for you to be able to generate these two images right here. Of course, I don't really care for that first one, but this second one looks quite badass. But don't use this one because my cousin is using this for his YouTube channel, one of his thumbnails. So don't use this one, but you can just take this prompt right here, and if you want to generate a similar type of thumbnail image, you can just tweak that prompt a little bit right there and get what you need. So that's all. I just wanted to share this with you really quickly, and I'm going to finish up the clip attention multiply video, which will be coming very shortly. So that way you can understand these values a little bit better. But for now, again, these values work really well. So I'm going to get back to editing this clip attention multiply video, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.